Yo, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Lucidius in the studio whipping up another video for you guys. Now today's video is about 2CB. It was about a very wild and memorable night on this particular psychedelic that it just stuck with me, and I thought that you guys would enjoy this story. So without further ado, let's just hop right into this. Nothing needs to be said. So this all started on a night, I would say kind of during the winter time. I always try and look for like the specific month. I'm not gonna lie with you guys, I don't remember this shit too well, like the time period. But it was definitely a little chillier outside, that is for sure, because no one wanted to go outside. None of my friends wanted to do this shit. And this story involves a good friend of mine who's in a lot of these stories called Johnny. You guys know about Johnny if you've listened to any of these stories. You guys know that Johnny's an awesome guy. He's one of my best friends. Now, me and Johnny, like any other night really, especially during these times, felt particularly devious. We just wanted to get to some shit, you know? We always wanted to get to some shit, whether it be stealing, drinking, you know, more stealing and fraud. Like, I don't know, man. Like, whatever we wanted to do, we usually found a way to do it. And on this particular night, it started off with a battery bomb. And it didn't go too well. We hooked up like a battery to some fucking I don't know what we did. We just basically covered it in flammable material and poured like flammable liquids on it and then set it on fire thinking it would explode. In reality, the battery just burst and started spurting out like dangerous fumes that probably gave us brain damage. It was funny as fuck, but it didn't go well. But that was kind of the start of the night, and the reason I bring that up is because it went so horribly, because it did not meet our expectations. We felt even more antsy, even more devious afterwards. We were like, well, that didn't fucking work. Now we really gotta do some shit, you know what I mean? And this is when a good friend of mine that we're gonna call Kyra hits me up. And she's like, do you guys want to drink? And me and Johnny instantly jumped on the opportunity to drink. Cause why the fuck not? You know, that's a good night that's devious. You know, well, like, nothing wrong with that. And so we told her to come over, and she probably took about like 2 hours. I don't know why. She worked late, but she still wanted to drink. This woman, props to her. If you're watching this, or any of my friends are watching this, you guys know that this woman was a beast, bro. She didn't sleep. She still doesn't sleep, but she just parties at the same time and manages to go to work and get her school done. I don't know what she runs on. Fucking nicotine and just air and God's will, because this woman's a mystery to even me. But without further ado, let's hop right into this. So she pulls up to my house. She's got a shit ton of liquor. And she comes into my room. I'm with my boy. My brother is in the other room with his friend, which we're gonna call this guy Chase. So my brother and his friend Chase were in the other room, and me and Kyra and Johnny were just in my room, and we had cracked some brews open and started drinking. And I had brought up the fact that I had some particularly interesting psychedelics that not even I had tried yet, aka 2CB. Now, my boy Johnny did not want to do this stuff at all. He was scared of normal psychedelics like mushrooms and acid. He hadn't even popped a tab at this point yet, so there was no way he was putting weird fucking powders up his nose. Absolutely not. But Kyra, on the other hand, she was much more interested and well-versed in the psychedelic universe. We had actually had quite a good few trips together with acid and shit. So she was a lot more open to this new substance that I had brought to the table. At the time, I actually had DMT carts, and I was passing this shit around like it was a THC cart. I'm not joking. People would just hit it and fucking feel weird for a few seconds and come back down. No one was breaking through because they were all a little bit afraid, and you know what? If you're not afraid of DMT, then there's something wrong with you. But my boy Johnny, he always had a cool name for it. He called it the Tiki cart because it seriously felt like that episode from SpongeBob, like Tiki Land. You guys will know what I'm talking about if you're well versed in that shit and you're cultured. But this shit, it was a good name. When you hit this stuff, just for like 10 or 15 seconds, you felt so calm. It was a very weird stillness. Like everything was very still and calm. It was very strange. It was very tiki. That's the only way to put it. You got to be there to know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I hadn't tried 2CB yet. You know, we were drinking, but I hadn't tried 2CB yet. But off the alcohol, I was starting to feel a little more loose, a little more open to new experiences and possibly overdosing on psychedelics that can make me lose my mind. But I did not want to be the first person to put this shit up my nose. I couldn't, you know? So I asked her, more or less told her that if she did it first, I would do it after. And I don't know why the fuck she agreed to this, but she did. Now, Kayow was kind of one of my newer friends, so she didn't really know the extent of my testing. I like to test drugs on people. I'll kind of, I don't want to say I trick them, but I persuade them into taking drugs by talking about all the positive effects and leaving out the negative effects. And then, just watch what happens. And if they have a great time, I'll do it. If they have a shit time, I will not do it. It's fucked up. It's not something I do anymore, but it's something I used to do, and it's still hilarious to me to this day. But she decided that she would have the first bump. Now, keep in mind, guys, 2CB is active in milligram amounts. It's very small. And in powder form, there's really no way to measure this unless you have a milligram scale, and a lot of people don't have a milligram scale. They have a regular one to scale out like weed or fucking flour, just like normal shit, in the household. But I didn't have one, so that's just how it was. But I kind of eyeballed it a little bit, I was like, well, this is a 500 milligram baggie. This looks to be like an alright dosage. And I plopped that fucker on my phone, gave her a straw to snort it out of, and told her to go ahead. And that's exactly what she did. She shot that shit up right up her nose. And this sneaky fucking woman, man, she hid the pain. Now, this shit is so painful to snort, and she hid it. She didn't want me to know that it was so painful because she knew that I would hesitate to snort it. So she kind of just sat there just like, oh yeah, it's fine. But I could see her eyes watering, so I was like, oh, it's something's gone up her nose. Everyone's eyes water. At this point, I don't think I had snorted anything, and if I have, it had just been like ketamine, and that shit's not really that painful to snort. It doesn't taste good, but it's not painful. But nevertheless, I seen her do it. She looked perfectly fine, so I'm like, fuck it, let's do it myself. So I get myself a nice bump too, a generous dosage, about the same as hers, because I didn't want to have a shitty experience, and I also didn't want to have anything stronger than her. So I snorted that shit up my right nostril, I remember it very well, and I was instantly met with the feeling of molten glass perforating through every fucking airway in my body. It was the most painful experience. To this day, I think it was the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. I don't know anything that's not, that's less painful. And that might just speak to the type of person I am. Maybe I'm just a pussy and I haven't experienced true pain yet. But that shit was painful. Literally the only way you can describe it is molten glass going up your nose. And there was no visuals yet. I was just sitting there in pure pain, clutching the right side of my face as if it had melted off. My right eyeball was just watering. It felt not good. And so I had the bright idea to snort a little bit of water to help it, I guess, marinate and evaporate or just disintegrate into my nose and absorb in there. And that worked very well, a little too well. You see, as soon as I did that, I felt this instant urge to throw up. It was uncontrollable. Usually I can hold this shit in, but in this case, I just could not. It was so instantaneous. The switch in realities was way too fast. I went from sitting there in pain with no visuals to literally tripping fucking balls. This dosage was obviously a little more than we should have done, and it kicked my ass at first. I instantly ran to my fucking windowsill and threw up out my window, just projectile vomited food and beer and fucking alcohol, everything, man. Everything came out in that moment. And I look up after, because I have my eyes closed, and I look up and I am just met with a sea, an ocean of visuals, and they were just so beautiful. They were so distracting that it took away from the pain I was feeling in that moment, because it hadn't quite subsided. It felt like the peak of it had, it was over, but I was definitely still riding out the horse of pain. And so I went downstairs after looking up and seeing that sea of visuals just to wash my face and nose out with the tap that's detachable. and my boy Johnny came with me, and I'm fucking looking in the sink, and the water droplets hitting the sink just look so strange. They're like rainbow, and they're swirling, almost like the way an ocean moves, you know? Think about a light breeze, or maybe a light storm, and the ocean's like swaying. And think about that. Think about like the visuals of that, and that overlay of the ocean was kind of on everything was just swirling very naturally, which is very strange considering this was a synthetic compound. And it was just stunning. It was just beautiful. I mean, I was looking at my fucking sink, you know, a kitchen sink. I may have said bathroom sink earlier, but a kitchen sink with like bits of corn and egg in it. And it was like, once again, one of the most beautiful things I'd ever witnessed in my entire life. And I look up to tell my boy Johnny this, and his face is just fucking a swirl of colors and fucking visuals. It was just stunning. And I told him about this, and as I start talking, everything's warping, but not in an overwhelming way. Everything was just perfect. You see, 2CB isn't really a headspace psychedelic like mushrooms or acid. It's more of a visual and tactile psychedelic, and that's what I loved so much about this. Is it's pretty hard to have a bad trip. It's like all the best parts of a trip apart from the headspace. But if I'm going to compare the headspace to anything, it was like a really low dose of MDMA. It was just, honestly, 2CB to this day has just such a special place in my heart for being so beautiful, you know. After talking to Johnny, though, we head outside, and I go out and sit on my chair, and I'm just petting my dog, and these sounds are just warping. It sounds like it felt like there was like a wall of reality, you know, a wall of perception. Like I was speaking, and the sound waves would hit like a certain point and just warp around and come back to me, almost like the Interstellar. I don't know if y'all have seen Interstellar at the end of the movie, how he fixed the world, but it's like a fucking circle, like a cylinder, like it all connects back around. It's some weird shit. It's some very strange and just peculiar stuff. But that's kind of what I felt like in that moment. You know, I'm petting my dog, sounds are warping all around me, beautiful, stunning visuals, and I completely forgotten about Kyra. And I look up, and she was out my window trying to speak to me, and she just wasn't speaking English. You see, I failed to tell you guys at the start of this that she had popped 2 tabs before she even did the 2CB, and was actually just casually hitting this DMT pen. She was actually on a different spectral plane. I have no idea what planet she was on, what dimension she was on, but she wasn't on Earth in this particular moment. I felt like I kind of was. I was starting to mingle with different dimensions, but she was gone. So I go upstairs, and she proceeds to tell me how my brother and his friend Chase were talking to her, but she just couldn't understand a word they were saying. And usually this would make people kind of anxious and freak out, but she was just laughing her ass off, giggling. And I looked at her, and she just looked like, I don't know how to explain it. She just looked like that she was meant to be. I just have no way to explain this, but I just felt like a character. I felt like we were 2 characters in a cartoon, man. We looked like cartoon characters, and it was so funny to both of us because we were both seeing relatively the same thing, and we were just laughing with this mutual, just like, holy fuck, like, yeah, bro, this is crazy. At that point, it was kind of starting to get late. I guess Johnny just wanted to make sure I was alright and wasn't having a bad trip. So once he found out I was alright, he decided to use the alcohol that was in his system to walk home. Amazing life hack. Amazing life hack. My brother and his friend Chase decided to piss off into his room and go to bed. So it was just me and Kyra just tripping fucking balls. And we decided to put on these amazing visual videos. And we just watched them for hours, just like staring at them, listening to the music, chatting about the trip. It was just such a stunning and beautiful time, and we kind of just chilled like that until, you know, the sun came up. And when the sun came up, it was even more beautiful. I just couldn't fucking fathom, I can't really explain to you guys how wonderful this experience was. We ended up falling asleep early in the morning. I drank a couple brews to help me go to bed. I don't recommend that, but that's what I was doing. And that concluded a wild night on 2CB. It was truly an amazing experience, and I hope you guys enjoyed that story. So if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. You guys know the goal, 100 subscribers. Without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next video.